I knew something was wrong the moment my husband offered Daniel the knife. Not because of the knife itself, because of how calm Noah looked holding it. The entire dining room smelled like butter, rosemary, and roasted turkey. Warm light from the chandelier reflected across wine glasses and polished silverware, while my family filled the room with overlapping conversations. Thanksgiving at our house had always been loud, comfortably loud, the kind of noise people mistake for happiness. And sitting 3 seats away from me, laughing with my younger brother like he belonged there, was the man I'd been sleeping with for 9 months. Even now, saying that makes me feel sick. Not just because of the affair, because I invited him there. Into our home. Into our family tradition, across the table from my husband. Daniel worked with me at a commercial design firm downtown. Confident, easy smile. The kind of man who knew exactly how to make every interaction feel intimate. At first, it was lunches, then drinks after work, then hotel rooms booked under fake conference schedules, and eventually the affair became routine enough that I stopped feeling afraid. That's the dangerous stage, not the beginning, the middle. When betrayal starts feeling sustainable. Noah never acted suspicious. That was part of why I became careless. He still kissed me goodbye every morning, still asked about work, still brought me coffee on weekends, still acted like a husband who trusted his wife completely. I understand now that trust and silence aren't always the same thing. Daniel being at Thanksgiving had originally been a joke. One of those, "wouldn't that be crazy?" comments during an affair. But then a week before Thanksgiving, Daniel mentioned he'd be alone because his parents were overseas. And before I could stop myself, I said, "You should come to ours." The moment the invitation left my mouth, I felt adrenaline rush through me. Danger disguised as excitement. And when I told Noah later that evening, he didn't even hesitate. "Of course," he said, smiling. Calm, perfectly calm. That should have terrified me. Thanksgiving morning felt strangely normal. Football playing quietly in the living room. My mother criticizing my table settings. My father opening wine too early. Everything familiar, everything safe. Which is probably why I ignored the tension building in my chest every time Noah and Daniel spoke casually to each other. Because they got along disturbingly well. Noah laughed at Daniel's jokes, asked him about work, even complimented his watch at one point. Watching them interact made me deeply uncomfortable in a way I couldn't explain. Like I was watching two realities overlap that should never touch. At one point while I was in the kitchen, Daniel came up beside me quietly. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded too quickly. And before either of us realized how risky it was, his hand brushed lightly against my lower back. Tiny movement, barely a second. But when I turned around, Noah was standing in the doorway, watching us. He smiled immediately. Not angrily, not suspiciously, just smiled, then asked if we needed help carrying dishes. And that moment stayed with me for the rest of the night. Because instinctively, I think I knew then. Dinner started shortly after sunset. The table looked beautiful. Candles, gold napkins, the massive turkey in the center. Everything carefully arranged like a magazine photo. And somehow that made what happened later feel even worse. Because humiliation becomes sharper when the setting is elegant. Halfway through dinner, Noah stood up, picked up the carving knife, then looked directly at Daniel. "Actually," he said casually, "why don't you do the honors?" The entire table paused slightly. Not dramatically, just enough to notice something unusual. Because Noah always carved the turkey himself. Every year, without exception. Daniel laughed awkwardly. "You sure?" Noah nodded. "Absolutely." Then he added, "You've already taken enough from me. Might as well take the turkey too." Silence. Complete silence. The kind where the room itself feels frozen. I stopped breathing. Literally. My entire body locked in place while the sentence replayed in my head. Daniel slowly lowered the knife. My mother looked confused. My father frowned slightly, still trying to process what Noah actually meant. Then Noah sat down calmly, folded his napkin, took a sip of wine, and looked directly at me. "Go ahead," he said softly. "Tell them." The panic that hit me in that moment felt physical, hot, violent, like my entire nervous system collapsing at once. "Noah," I whispered, but my voice barely worked. My younger sister looked between us nervously. "What's happening?" Nobody answered, because everyone already understood. Not fully, but enough. Enough for the air to change. Daniel stepped backward first. Coward. I remember hating him instantly for that. Because the second consequences appeared, he wanted distance from me. Noah finally looked toward my parents, then said calmly, "My wife and Daniel have been sleeping together for 9 months." My mother gasped so sharply she covered her mouth immediately afterward. My father stared directly at me with an expression I still can't fully describe. Not anger, disappointment, shock, grief. And Noah? Still calm. Always calm. That was the worst part. "When did you find out?" My father asked quietly. Noah smiled faintly. "Officially?" Then he looked at Daniel. "Chicago." My stomach dropped instantly. Chicago had been 5 months earlier, meaning he had known for 5 entire months. Suddenly, every strange moment from the past months rushed back into my head. The emotional distance, the politeness, the unnatural calmness. This dinner wasn't discovery. It was closure. "Why would you do this now?" I whispered through tears. Noah leaned back slightly in his chair, then said the sentence that completely broke me. "Because I got tired of watching another man enjoy my family while pretending he respected it." Nobody spoke after that. Not immediately. Because there was nothing left to say. The truth had settled over the table like smoke. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Daniel finally muttered, "I should go." Noah nodded once. "Yeah," he said calmly. "You probably should have done that 9 months ago." Then Daniel left, just walked straight out the front door. No defense, no apology, nothing. And somehow that hurt worse than the exposure itself. Because in one horrible moment, I realized the fantasy I'd built around the affair only existed while things were easy. The second real consequences arrived. He abandoned me. I started crying harder, trying to explain, trying to apologize. But every word sounded pathetic before it even left my mouth. Noah never raised his voice, never insulted me, never screamed. And honestly, that made it so much worse. Because rage would have meant emotion was still alive. But Noah looked like a man who had already mourned the marriage privately. Then he reached beside his chair and placed a folder on the table. Photos, receipts, printed messages. Everything organized neatly, like evidence prepared for court. "I hired someone after Chicago," he said quietly. Again. Calm, controlled, prepared. My mother started crying. My sister left the table entirely. My father wouldn't even look at me anymore. And there I was, sitting in the middle of the destruction I created while the turkeys slowly went cold in front of us. A few minutes later, Noah finally stood up, looked around the room, then at me. "The divorce papers are already signed," he said. "I just wanted one honest Thanksgiving before this family changed forever." That sentence destroyed me, because suddenly I realized this dinner hadn't been revenge to him. It was goodbye. Months later, after the divorce, I asked Noah why he used the turkey. Why expose everything like that? In front of family, during Thanksgiving. And his answer still stays with me. "Because carving the turkey is tradition," he said. Then he looked at me carefully. And I wanted everyone at the table to finally see what was really being divided. I still think about the silence after his first comment. That horrible frozen silence where everyone realized the dinner wasn't normal anymore. Where the room stopped being a family gathering and became the ending of a marriage. But the worst part? It wasn't my family staring at me. It wasn't Daniel leaving. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was realizing my husband had probably stopped loving me months earlier. And I was too distracted by excitement and secrecy to notice I'd already lost him long before Thanksgiving dinner ever started.